Welcome, viewers. We are so pleased you've joined us for news from Midlands University, a program by Northwood University. I'm Academic Vice President and Provost Kristen Stahauer, and we have a great lineup for you today. We're going to start by hearing about a student-led sustainability initiative that's encompassing the entire campus. And then you'll hear about our newest sports, men's and women's lacrosse. And then finally, great news from a joint study between the McNair Center for Free Enterprise and Entrepreneurship and the Mackinac Center for Public Policy. That's one you won't want to miss. And first, I'd like to introduce our guests, Dr. Chelsea Butcher, a professor at Northwood University, Lex Rutledge, a senior, almost ready to graduate, but making a difference for sure, and then Dr. Kristen Greiman, our management professor. So welcome, and we're so pleased you're here, and we can't wait to hear about Green is the New Blue. What is that?
Yes, absolutely. It was a project started in my 2020 sustainability science course, where Northwood asked my students to come up with a really catchy, cool marketing plan for our recycling program here at Northwood. And there were a lot of great ideas, but the winning idea was green is the new blue, written out as green is the NU blue. So, and it's a project that was started and taken over by Lex most recently in the spring of 2022.
We talk a lot about how learning in the classroom translates into the real world, and this is a great illustration of this.
Absolutely. Experiential learning is something that I really have a passion for in my classroom, and the students seem to really like the ability to take their passions and turn them into a real learning experience.
So Lex, it's really exciting to have this kind of impact, that something that started as a class project that now is changing the face of Northwood's campus.
Yeah, they had the original idea, and then I got to take it over because COVID kind of put it on pause. So yeah, it's been amazing working with my professors and other members of the campus and the community to get it started.
And you actually brought in some of your own work experience that you've gathered as a student, actually by doing internships, I believe, to this project.
Yeah, I work in the sustainability department at Shupan, a recycling company, so I've got a lot of experience from there that I could bring back to this initiative.
Yeah, and they're one of the most innovative recycling organizations around, and they happen to be based in Michigan.
Yep.
That's awesome. So tell us more about what this entails.
Sure. Instrumental in the success of this program has also been Tom Pastors. He works in our physical plant. And also Dr. McPhee, Northwood's First Lady. Both of them have been instrumental in getting this project off the ground. And then, of course, Lex working at Shupan has been a great fit, both on the student side and then other departments.
That's great. So what's happening on campus then? What exactly is the sustainability aspect of this?
Do you want to take it, Lex?
You got it.
Lex is measuring not only the environmental sustainability of recycling. When we hear the word sustainability, we often think of green and recycling, which is a huge part of recycling and being sustainable. But she's also going to be measuring, is it worth it economically? How much will the university save in their landfill versus recycling? She will look at things like contamination and is it economically sustainable? Is it socially sustainable? Is it environmentally sustainable? So she's doing a really great job on that.
Yeah, well, and when we do it right, it hits it really checks all those boxes, doesn't it?
Exactly.
So what are you driving around campus picking up recyclables?
Yeah, Tom made me a pretty cool golf cart. Get to drive that around campus and collect the material. We have bins in a few of our academic buildings, one of our administrative buildings, and then some of the dorms.
That's wonderful. Well, I know in my role for many years I've heard from students that we need to do more, and you are making a difference in that way, so we really appreciate that. Now, this has also been a Dow sustainability project as well.
Yes, absolutely. We're so thankful to Dow specifically for a sustainable community grant funding from the Dow Great Lakes Bay Invitational event. So absolutely, they got us started, and we're so grateful. And it's really come full circle. In 2020, when we started this project, a student at Northwood, John Perot, he was part of the winning team who came up with Green is the New Blue hashtag, And he actually, 3 years later, now has printed all of the signage for us, all of the signage for the golf cart. So it really did come full circle.
Oh, that is wonderful. Well, this will have a lasting impact, and green is the new blue, and you're making a difference, all three of you. Thanks for your leadership, and thanks for making our campus and our community and our environment a better place. We really appreciate that. So as we wrap up this segment, we'll go for a short message, and then you'll be hearing from our athletic director, Jeff Curtis, about our new lacrosse teams.
Hey, Mom, can we read another book, please?
I don't know, honey. It's kind of late.
You're late.
Mommy's gonna be a few minutes late today.
Too late. They're closed.
No, it's not too late. I can send over the revised contract in the morning.
Look forward to doing business with her. You know what?
Welcome back, viewers, and welcome Jeff Curtis, Athletic Director at Northwood University. You have some great news for us about an expansion of our sports teams.
I do. Thank you for having me. Very excited to be here today to talk about men's and women's lacrosse adding to our sports portfolio.
How did that decision come about?
It's been in the works for a little while. I think it's a sport that's very emerging in the Midwest, and it's one of the more popular sports for high school sports right now and gaining popularity by the day. We felt it was a great opportunity to add some sports and enhance student life and athletics in general, so it was a great decision.
I agree, and it's not the first time Northwood has had a lacrosse team.
That's correct. So in the 90s, 92 to 99, we had a varsity men's lacrosse team, and this will, however, be the first time that we have a women's varsity lacrosse team.
Wonderful. A lot must be underway to prepare the way, selecting coaches, et cetera.
It is a very long process, and national search was done, and it is currently ongoing to find two really good candidates to lead these two programs. This next year, we will have a coach in place for both programs to start recruiting student athletes, to build the roster, to build the team. So they'll be playing some exhibition games in their first year, not at the varsity level, continuing to build the rosters. And then the following year in 24-25, we will be competing at the college level.
Yes, and that'll be in the GMAC conference, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So the Great Midwest Athletic Conference, we refer to it as the GMAC. We're excited to join and add lacrosse. There's currently 7 teams in the women, and there's 9 teams for the men.
That's wonderful. Well, and it's so important at Northwood University, the holistic view of our students, and lacrosse. There are the aspects of the sport, but there's also the aspects of the personal and professional development that go along with that.
There is, as with most sports. President McDonald mentioned it's more than just the cradling, the shooting, the scoring, the scooping. It's more about the leadership and having level-headed people on the field, and just working on the perseverance and all things that our students really embody at Northwood University. It just makes it a really good fit.
Well, personally, I'm really excited about getting out there and seeing our teams in action, and we really appreciate all that you do, Jeff, in terms of leadership and really emphasizing the student part of student athlete and making sure we're developing young men and women to be free enterprise leaders who are well-rounded.
Yeah, that's a big part of what we do, and we're, as I mentioned, just very excited to get this going and continue our tradition of excellence and continue to push things forward.
Well, it definitely enhances our campus, our life, and also our community here in the Great Lakes Bay region. So
I agree.
Thank you for joining us today, Jeff, and good luck with that search and with launching that team. It'll be a nice enhancement.
Okay, thank you.
And next, we have an exciting new study on natural gas that's a collaboration between the McNair Center and the Mackinac Center for Public Policy. But first, a message from Northwood University.
We've never met, but we know you. You've got big plans for your career and your life.
Yes, I love it.
You're the overachiever, the go-getter with the entrepreneurial spirit.
This is such a cool idea. We could definitely.
You're also guided by this inner compass, your true north. Yeah, we know you. And maybe it's time for you to know us.
Welcome back, viewers. We're so pleased to welcome back two guests, Dale Matchek and Jason Hayes, to talk about a study that was done in a collaboration between Northwood's McNair Center and the Mackinac Center for Public Policy on natural gas. Dr. Dale Matchek is the chair of our economics department and the David E. Fry Professor of Free Market Economics. And Jason Hayes is the director of environmental policy at the Mackinac Center for Public Policy. You've joined us before. We're really excited about hearing about this recent collaboration and study, and must mention our beloved colleague, Tim Nash, who was not able to join us today, but very instrumental in the study as well. So, Dale, could you start us off a bit about how this came about?
Well, it came about through the McNair Center, and it was one of their issues that they were interested in. And Tim Nash, as you know, is the head of the McNair Center, and he came up with the idea and then got us involved in the project, and it ballooned from there. And it produced what we hope will be the beginning of a whole new line of research at the McNair Center into the economics of energy.
Wonderful. Well, and in fact, that's interesting too, because you're coming full circle in some respects, because your doctorate at Cornell was on environmental economics. So,
yes.
Yeah, that's just fantastic.
It's returning to my initial research interest in economics.
Yeah, that's great. So why natural gas, and what does the study cover?
Well, natural gas is a resource that a lot of people don't, I think, fully appreciate. It provides not just a cheap source of reliable energy, but there are many other surprisingly strong environmental benefits as well. And I'll invite Jason to address that, since he's our environmental scientist.
Sure. Yeah. So environmental benefits are definitely part of it, but there's also, to add to what Dale was just saying, a string of over 6,000 products that are also made from natural gas and methane and ethanes and ethanol and all of those other aspects of natural gas liquids. But so the environmental aspects of it, one of the things we covered in the paper was that the 6 major criteria pollutants is what are called by the EPA. We've actually, through a mix of more efficient use of energy and fuels like natural gas, been able to reduce our atmospheric emissions of these 6 criteria air pollutants like NOx and SOx and lead and all of those bad things that we don't want to breathe in by 78% since 1970 to today. So our air is much cleaner. And then for those that are concerned about climate change, using natural gas has actually allowed us to reduce our CO2 emissions by 20 to 25%, depending on which year you cite, from 2005 levels. So we're actually doing extremely well. We're switching and upgrading older equipment like our old coal plants, and that the coal plants that have literally just timed out, they've lived out their life cycle, and now it's time to replace them with something. When we replace them with natural gas, it's just a cleaner burning fuel, it's more efficient, and so we're getting the benefits of new technologies and also a cleaner fuel. So we cover some of that in the study.
That's great. And something else that you have touched upon as well, not only are there the benefits, but it's very abundant too.
Yeah, so from an economic perspective, there was a huge investment in the development of natural gas because of some technological improvements that happened in the first part of the 21st century. And the development of our so-called shale gas brought down the price of natural gas dramatically. And actually, we report in a study that it's been estimated it saves the average American household about $2,500 a year in costs, and that's annually. So you can imagine over the decade, that's a substantial
That definitely
amount.
adds up.
That's
Right.
an energy dividend, I guess, or natural gas dividend.
We were saying it's like having someone just hand you a new car or something like that. It's over a 10-year period, because that's what you'd probably keep a car for. But yeah, basically you can afford a car for free because of the savings brought by natural gas.
And not to mention, we think about, as consumers, the cost of energy, but for businesses, the cost of, and especially energy-intensive businesses, the cost of energy is a huge factor in their investment and where those investments take place. And if the sources of energy are unreliable or expensive, they're not going to get that business investment that an economy needs to grow. And that supports job creation and high living standards. So a cheap and abundant source of energy is very important from a business perspective as well.
So often there's this trade-off. It's positioned as an either or on renewables. Could you speak to that in terms of just balancing our energy sources?
Yeah, definitely. We've been focused on building a lot more renewables, wind and solar primarily, because people are, again, concerned about climate change. But one of the things that gets kind of overlooked or people may not fully understand is that wind and solar are intermittent, often unreliable, or what I term weather-dependent sources of energy. And so if the wind's not blowing, your wind turbines are not producing electricity. If the sun isn't shining like it does every day at night, right, we lose the sun, or if it's cloudy or something like that, or if snow is falling and it's covering the solar panels, well, then those solar panels are not producing electricity. And so what you need then in the interim, in the actual majority of the time that these sources of energy are not producing electricity, is you need something reliable that you can turn on quickly. When the wind stops blowing, it happens suddenly, and you're left without. You need, it's called a fast ramping fuel. So you can fire up a gas turbine or something like that very quickly, and it can replace or smooth out that electricity supply. And so gas is the thing that we're relying on to do that. So it actually pairs very well with renewables. So when people tell you, oh, we've got to get rid of fossil fuels, as long as we're using wind and solar, we're going to need that fossil fuel for sure for several decades more.
Thank you for that. And then what messages can policymakers take from this study?
Well, one of the biggest obstacles to energy development or a rational energy policy is, I think, wishful thinking. The Energy Information Administration says that we're going to continue to be reliant on fossil fuels, for the next couple of decades. And during that time, it makes sense to develop those resources that are the cleanest, that are the least expensive, that allow us to pursue energy independence. And, as we all know from recent events in Europe, that is a worthwhile objective of national energy policy. Because the U.S. is such a fantastic supply of natural gas, an abundant supply, all of those things are achievable. But politicians need to send the signals to the market so that entrepreneurs can make the long-term and risky investments necessary to develop those resources. If they're sending the wrong signals, we're only going to need it for 2 more years or 3 more years, then they're not going to be developed, or banks aren't going to be lending to the businesses so that they can make those necessary investments.
Yeah, and we just discussed how renewables actually need natural gas. One of the other issues, a lot of policymakers or elected officials will be thinking that, well, if we stop producing natural gas, then we're protecting the environment, right? You'll hear that sort of thing regularly, but actually North American oil and gas producers, North American miners, all of those, they operate in a much more efficient, much more clean manner. So if we shut down natural gas production in North America, then the world is going to go to Russia or Saudi Arabia or some other source, because they are not going to stop using the gas. It's going to still be demanded, so people will just find another producer. Okay, so what we're doing...
That may not be as clean.
Correct. That's it, exactly. So what we want elected officials and policymakers to understand is, if gas is being produced here in North America, whether it's in the U.S. or Canada, then we're actually doing it much more cleanly and efficiently under much more strict environmental regulations, much more strict labor regulations. So a lot of the working conditions that employees work under in Russia or other countries are not as friendly, I'll say. So we're doing a much better job producing that energy here. It's more clean, it's more efficient, it's more affordable, all of those good things. So when people tell you, oh, we're protecting the environment by not producing that here, they don't appear to understand the full picture. And so we're hoping through this paper we can start to educate policymakers on that.
Well, and the general public, because I think general energy literacy is a huge, I think that's one of the motivations for the McNair Center to pursue this, because there's a lot of misconceptions around energy policy. I mean, here's an example of the whole picture, right? One of the biggest threats to environmental sustainability is land use. And the effects of developing natural gas on land use are really beneficial. They're very positive. It has a very small land footprint compared to many of the other sources that people are talking about. And natural gas is used as a feedstock and fertilizers that allow us to grow more food on less land.
Right.
And it wasn't so long ago when people were publishing books about the famine and the population explosion. Well, we've been able to feed not only a growing world population, but we've been able to do it with a much smaller amount of land per unit of food, and that has protected wildlife habitat. The biggest threat to endangered species is not climate change, it's actually land use. That's the most imminent threat, and natural gas has a real important role to play there.
Well, I think that's a great note that we probably are going to have to wrap up. We could keep talking about this. You both are so passionate, and you translate this into something that we as lay people can really appreciate, and we hope our policy makers also take note of these findings, and they're very tangible and useful, and we thank you for joining us, Dale and Jason, and thanks to our viewers for joining us for this episode of News from Midland's University, a program by Northwood University. Thanks for joining us.